Okay, so let's talk about LightLogic. You guys have basically been dealing with this ultimately this whole semester, but now we're dealing with it in terms of rendering, and so shading and shadow shapes and light shapes and things like that. So we're going to start this off with just a very simple sphere. You can set one up at home. You can go get an egg and draw that, or you can get a white ball and draw that, or you can just draw it from this photo here. So what you want to have is your paper towel, that's now really dirty, your charcoal pencils, okay, and your nylon eraser, and then also your pencil eraser for extreme highlights. And then, of course, you're going to need your vine charcoal. We're going to lay in the charcoal first with the vine charcoal. So we already have the toned paper, right? But we're going to now incorporate drawing the sphere. So I'm going to draw it in with the vine charcoal, okay, because it falls off the page easier. If I make a mistake, I just take my dirty paper towel and rub it back in. So yay us. If you start drawing with this and you make a mistake, you won't be able to erase it. It'll still always be there, this annoying mistake looming overhead. So the idea is to get used to drawing with the vine charcoal, which I know it can be a bit clumsy in the beginning, but that's what practice is for. So here I've got this image, and that's what I'm going to base everything off of. I have my LightLogic goes something like this. If your light is coming in from here and it's hitting the ball, then the light comes in, it's hitting the ball, and then there's a shadow shape over here. They call that a form shadow, or they call it a core shadow. This is the cast shadow. So it's very obvious, it's casting a shadow onto the ground plane. So we're going to draw this ultimately. Our cast shadow, our form shadow, a light side. Now, when the light comes in from this way, sometimes it bounces off the surface of the ground right here and it hits back up on the ball. You can see that kind of lighter area right here. It's not as light as that, but it's like a darker mid-tone, okay? So sometimes that does happen where you get a bounced reflection from the ground onto the ball. So we can indicate that. Now, another thing is that you notice that the ball is shaded on the very edge. It's not just completely white. Because it's moving away from us in space, it's curving around, and the light sometimes is not catching it there. So there might be some value there. All right, but let's just start with the lay-in. I put tracing paper or just a sheet of something over this so I'm not smearing. And so I'm going to draw in my ball first, and it's not going to be tiny. Okay, so there's my sphere. I'm going to also incorporate a ground plane. So I'm not worried about mistakes like that because I can just smear them back in to, actually I made a mistake. So I'm going to put this back in. Now it's gone. Make this a little bit more round. And I'm going to put my ground plane up it because I feel like it. Yeah, something like that. And then I'm going to draw in my cast shadow. You've got to think about the shadow shapes and what they're doing and what do they look like? You know, where are they coming out? Where are they hitting on the object? Right here. So it's like if you look at just this image, it's like, where is this hitting on the ball? And where does this come out in relationship to the ball? So there's some sighting that happens there as well, right? Where you're like trying to figure out where everything's lined up. So I'm coming in with my cast shadow here. And again, I'm coming in with my vine charcoal, so I can erase it if I need to. Okay. Then I want to figure out my shadow shape. We call this shadow mapping. So where is it? If my light's coming in from here, right? Let's just figure out where it's lightest and where it's darkest. And let's indicate that. It's because it's a ball, it's going to be curved. And then now, this is where the smooth transition value scale thing comes in. Now I've got to figure out where is my darkest dark, where's my lightest light, kind of map those things out. Maybe my highlight is around here, right? And then obviously this is my cast shadow. Now if you look at this image, you can notice that the cast shadow, where it's closest to the object, it's darkest. And also where it's closest to the object, the shadow shape is kind of crisp. And it softens as it moves away because it's starting to catch the light. So from here to here, this is where our smooth transition value scale study comes in. It's like, it's not just going to abruptly stop. It's going to be a smooth transition from dark to light. So that is my thing on LightLogic. I mean, really, with your descriptive drawings, you guys have been doing this already. You've been already marking off where the shadow shapes are, where the light shapes are. So I'm going to start off with my HB pencil. I'm not going to come in and do just dark darks right off the bat. I'm going to start by rendering in my kind of light and kind of coming in from there. So you're going to have to work fairly slowly. You want to have a good point on your charcoal. So again, now you can use your sandpaper block or just sandpaper strip, and just on its side, turn it around and try to get a good point. So I'm coming in and I'm dealing with the ball, the form shadow first. And if you look at this, you can start to see that the cast shadow is darker than the ball. So it's good that I'm coming in with my HB, my lighter charcoal pencil, because I'll probably use my 2B for down here for the cast shadow. So I'll do a little bit of shading here and get us kind of going, and then I'll do a time-lapsed video. You're gonna want, your hand is gonna get really dirty, okay? So you're gonna definitely want to tracing or something out to rest your hand on. And as you're going, don't just move the tracing paper with your hand, pick it up and then move it down, okay? So that way you don't smear the rest of your drawing. Now remember, I did the whole lay-in with my vine charcoal, and it falls off really nice and easily. So that's why we do that. I can't reiterate that enough. I made a mistake here, so I'm going to take my smudge stick and just kind of blend it back in to this. I did not have you guys buy these. You might want them later, but right now I don't want you smudging because it becomes a crutch. I want you to rely on the pressure of your hand to the paper and building up your gradients from dark to light by hand instead of relying on just smudging all over the place. It's a great thing to use for some things, but not over the entirety of the object. So I'm just building up my value slowly. If because you guys don't have smudge sticks, or if you do from another class or other time in your life, you can take a pen and you can take your maybe not a dirty paper towel, but you can wrap it around it and create a fine point that way, and then smudge that way if that thing you want. So I'm just going to start off doing some rendering, and then I'll do a time lapse so it'll go a little bit faster. I'm going to deal with the background of this drawing as well, because this project is all about no line. We use line to build up our image, of course, you know, trying to figure out what's happening. We have to use the contour lines to figure out the shape, but then that's going to disappear, and we're going to rely on shadow shape value to define the form and show us that it's moving away from us in space. Now, as I get closer to this line, and I know where it is, I'm not going to shade over that line. I'm going to make it disappear a little bit, so it doesn't. I'm just going to blend it back into the background, because I already marked it off. I know where it is, but I want that line to go away. Now, especially with charcoal, you must have something down on your page, because it just gets everywhere. And what I'm going to do now is then deal a little bit with the shading over here, because I don't want to rely on just it being white right here. It's not going to be, because it's moving away from us in space. Okay. Now I'm going to come in with my 2B pencil, and I'm going to make that shadow shape, the cast shadow on here, pretty dark as it's closest to my object. I mean, I'm not even really pressing that hard, and you can already see the difference between my 2B softer charcoal compared to my HB. Okay, so now I've got it mapped out. I'm going to continue going back to the sphere, the ball, and do more layering with my HB pencil. The majority of this drawing is really actually done with your HB and your 2B, and that's it, but mainly your HB is your friend. So I'm actually going to lift this out, because that smearing really didn't help me out a lot there. So I'm going to just blend it back in. I can lift out my highlight with my kneaded eraser, get it clean, and then just kind of mark that off. You'll probably have to bring it back a few times, but it's okay. It'll just get lost, and then you'll bring it back. Okay, so that is LightLogic. I'm going to now do a time lapse.